On this week's episode, I'm joined by Octaviu Mateus, scientist, paleontologist, and dinosaur enthusiast. We discuss, amongst other things, how exploring as a child led to one of the biggest dinosaur discoveries to date, and how Portugal was not only the perfect place for these dinosaurs to thrive, but the perfect place to preserve their bones. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, A Simple Life, and I'm really excited to be joined here by Octaviu Mateus. Octaviu, how are you? Did I say your name correctly? And thanks for being on the podcast.
I'm Octaviu Mateus. It's in the Portuguese pronunciation, but it was pretty close. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Good.
You're welcome. How are you today?
Very good.
Wonderful.
Portugal is a good place to live, so I'm happy.
Exactly. We're going to get into all of that. But Octaviu, maybe just want to start off by telling us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm paleontologist. I'm professor at University Nova de Lisboa and expert in dinosaurs. So what I love the most is going to the field, find some bones, excavate them, and trying to get life back on those fossils with millions of years. And by doing so, we find new species for science. We find new pieces of a puzzle that is obviously unknown. And Portugal, and where I live in Lourinhã, is so rich on dinosaurs that I've been I would say quite successful on finding fossils.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not from Portugal originally. I'm originally from South Africa, but there were a few things that I loved growing up. One was castles, and we have a lot of castles in Portugal. And another thing that I loved growing up was dinosaurs. I used to watch Dino Riders. Do you remember Dino Riders, the cartoon?
I don't think
You've got to check it out. You've got to check it out. It's a cartoon about guys who drive around on dinosaurs fighting each other. It's amazing. Okay, it's just a cartoon. Okay, and then so this is like just being a kid again, speaking to you about dinosaurs and dinosaur bones. I had a book as a child with all the different types of dinosaurs, the Bronchosaurus and the Triceratops and all the different types of dinosaurs. The names have all changed. But yeah, so this is amazing. And I want to get into the dinosaur stuff. But maybe if you could sort of tell us about your village. Tell us about Lourinhã, growing up there. What's special about this place, and what you want people to know about your village, Lourinhã.
So the place Lourinhã is close to the coast, and the shore has fairly high cliffs, go to 60 meters or so. Some dunes in between. With white sand beach is a nice. I think it's the coast is very, very, very pretty. Not too much construction, so it's kind of still fairly wild, so to speak. It's not so transformed as Algarve is, for instance. And the colors are bluish and reddish of the rocks, so it's really, really beautiful in my view. And those rocks of those cliffs they are not only interesting, they tell us a lot about the geology and about the Jurassic. So it is considered one of the top places for Jurassic rocks in the world, and with a lot of dinosaurs. So by living in Lourinhã and growing in Lourinhã as a kid, and I was extremely lucky because my parents were actually the couple that founded the local museum. So since I was a kid, they took me to look for fossils and to excavate them. So quite often I remember coming from school, and in the top of the kitchen table or dining table, we had fossils, or they were amateur archaeologists and paleontologists. So or human skulls, because that's what they excavated and things like that. It's was now I realize was an unusual childhood in comparison to anybody else. Was really quite something. The first time I went for a field that I remember of and that we have pictures, I was about 4 years old. It was a small expedition not far from Lourinhã. We camped, went to explore some caves. I was 4. My first excavation was an archaeological cave. So we went into the cave. There's few humans that were being excavated, and I was 7 years old. And
amazing.
By 9, I found a quite large dinosaur tooth, a big carnivore that actually later on, as an adult, I named as a new species for science because we got part of the skull. And I was 9 years old when I made that finding. So
amazing.
Growing here, but not only here, growing in that family was definitely different from anyone else in the planet, I suppose.
So, okay, so you were 9 years old when you found the tooth.
Correct.
And what were you looking for? I mean, were you looking for dinosaur bones, or were you just sort of okay?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, I knew exactly what I found, and it's funny because my parents always loved more archaeology. I was more into dinosaurs and paleontology. So my dad loved those Neolithic ant axes, and I knew exactly what it is by the time, because was what we had when I was a kid. We had ant axes and fossils and vertebrae and teeth and skulls, and that was around in a house all the time. And when I found a tooth is like a really long, curvated with serration, like a kitchen knife, adapted to cut through flesh. It's really well preserved tooth. And I knew exactly what it was, a tooth, but I was like playing around with my dad, saying, "Hey, look what I found, an axe." And I just remember, I mean, I was very little, of course, I couldn't remember very much, but I do remember his eyes growing and saying, "Whoa," because he was so excited, of course. I knew exactly what it was.
I mean, just paint us a picture. It just sounds so much fun that, you're this young kid and you're kind of exploring the cliffs of Lourinhã. How did you get the idea that there were dinosaurs there in the first place? Was this because of your parents? Had they already found things? How did that idea, even you said they were more into archaeology, how did the idea even into your head that, okay, there's something here and more to discover?
Well, for me personally, I always lived with that knowledge. So we went to the field looking for fossils, as other families go to the park walking the dog. That's it. So I don't even remember when I thought by the first time, like, well, we have dinosaurs here. I mean, for me, it's like having trees or the beach or anything else. But dinosaurs are known in that area. Actually, the very first dinosaur ever found in Iberia Peninsula was found here in Lourinhã in 1863. So
okay, so as far back as that already. So as far back as that already, we knew.
Yes.
Wow.
And in the 1950s, there was some findings, but ever since there was not much in matter of paleontology in Lourinhã or in the country for that matter. So my parents and others revived a little bit the paleontology, or not a little bit, a lot the paleontology in Lourinhã in the early 80s.
They a lot. I mean, they started a museum, so that was a huge step. That was one of the first
and they
places I
started.
visited in Lorinier, was the museum.
Was it really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So and they started as volunteers. So they had other professions which they
Mhm.
considered quite boring. My mother worked in the hospital, and my father worked as a public servant in the tax office. So in their free time, they have done archaeology and paleontology. So they study as adults. They went to university, and they learned everything they needed. And my father became the curator of the museum already as a profession, but it changed as already as an adult.
I mean, Octavio, I mean, it's amazing to sort of grow up in a family like this. We had a previous guest on the podcast, Joao Garcia. I don't know if you know who that is. Who's climbed the mountains,
Yeah, the climber.
And you know, he got enrolled in the Scouts, and that's how he sort of got involved with mountain climbing or rock climbing. But he took it to another level, kind of like you took it to another level. But he was given this certain amount of
than me, for sure.
yeah, but he was given a certain amount of freedom by his parents to just go. You know, like he talked in the podcast. He talks about he got on his bike and he cycled to Viseu, into that region to go and do a mountain climbing tour with a group. I mean, what was it like for you growing up in a place where you had that freedom and that I suppose that security and safety just to go and explore and discover? What was that like, that experience for you as a young boy?
Well, indeed, my parents were very hands-off on that respect. So they allow me to do pretty much everything. Well, it was good to be back at home at dinner time, that's for sure. But until dinner time, I mean, I was wandering by through the fields or beach or doing whatever I could, and that sense of freedom, as you said, is very interesting, and I don't see in the young people nowadays. I mean, we don't see kids playing in the fields or playing alone in the street anymore. Almost, it's so something changed in the way I played when I was a kid, or how kids do it nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think that was very important for me because I've learned so much about how nature worked. I was in the nature quite often, so being in forests or just in the field, that made me appreciate very much looking to birds and to plants and animals in general. So I became biologist first. My degree is in biology, and paleontologist as a specialization for a PhD. So I think that was very, very important, and that freedom is only possible because Portugal, at least my area, it's really, really safe. I mean, there is no crime. Of course, there is crimes, obviously, but there is no real violent crimes of any sort. I feel I can go anywhere, anytime, of day and night, and I never feel the least threat. So, and that is very comfortable, and one of the best things in Portugal, or in my area, it's wonderful. So and that helped. Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's quickly. You mentioned food. You must have been. You must have worked up quite an appetite. Getting up, going up and down the hills and digging and everything. What were you happy to eat when you got home at mom and dad at the table?
Well, when I was a kid, I was eating a lot, as most of kids, I suppose. That changed pretty much. Otherwise, I would get fat. I really like the Portuguese food. The Mediterranean food in general is considered one of the best, even by UNESCO. Is one of the healthiest foods. So I love fish. I mean, in that case, I'm like totally Portuguese stereotype. I love fish, and
There's some good restaurants out that side on that coastline there for fish, and still some traditional places.
Sardines, some soles or bacalhau, or I mean, you name it. For me, between meat and fish always wins. Good coffee. I really enjoy the coffee, so that's it's a good place to be for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, Octavio, let's talk about these dinosaurs. I mean, this was I've been now in Portugal for more than 12 years, and Portugal is just always surprising me for the small country that it is. There's always a surprise around the corner. You learn something new about this place, and one of the things that surprised me was the dinosaurs. I've always been in this area. I'm not far from where you are. I'm in the Obidos area, and I know that there's a print, I believe, near Salive do Porto as well. There's a dinosaur print near the beach, one of the beaches there. Yes. Well, what were they doing here? And I mean, in your opinion, as a scientist, as a paleontologist, why were they here? What were the conditions here for them? Like things like that. I mean, there's just so much that I'd love to understand.
It's hard to believe, but already in dinosaur times, they knew where to live well.
Exactly.
But the question is, of course, as an issue. I mean, it's not were they here? It's so relevant as why a plant is in that place. I mean, dinosaurs were all over the world. They dominated the planet from pole to pole, equators, everything on a continent or island. Dinosaurs dominated. They didn't dominate the oceans, but land. They were everywhere. In Portugal, we have a combination of features that make it very, very rich in dinosaurs. So they exist pretty much everywhere, but you need good places with a lot of vegetation and fresh water first. We need conditions to bury the skeletons and fossilize them. So if you want to fossilize an animal, you need to bury it with sands and silt and clay, and that will preserve, they'll fossilize with the right geochemistry, not to alkaline, not to acid, so the fossil gets preserved. That layer will sink in because of tectonics, because just the movement of the plates. Those layers will sink in, and eventually they have to come to surface. So at surface nowadays, at sea level or so, we have the right layers of the right age, and they are available now. So there is no forests or huge towns or sandy deserts or simply an ocean that covers those layers. Those are available for scientists to look for fossils. So these four conditions: a good place to live, a good place to fossilize, the right layers at the right surface now, and available layers make Portugal one of the best places in the world for rocks of late Jurassic age, continental with fossils.
Amazing.
These conditions, if you have one that fails, you wouldn't have any fossil. If it's not a good place for living, you won't find fossils. If it's not a good place for fossilized, the same thing. So you need to have these four conditions, and we do have the four conditions in better than pretty much any other place on Earth.
Amazing. Yeah. So basically, in another place where maybe the conditions are good, but the soil wasn't correct, they wouldn't be able to be fossilized, and we would never know that they existed.
Exactly.
Or in a place where the soil could be good, but the conditions were bad, they wouldn't be there to die. And
exactly.
They'd move on.
One good example is if you put one skeleton of an animal that wants to be, you want to preserve this for 1 million years. would you bury it in first? You need to bury it, right? Would you put it in the top of a mountain or in the base of a valley? You wanted to do it. It seems like top of the mountain is the remotest place, and ice would preserve it. But no, I mean, erosion would remove the entire mountain likely, and mountains are always being eroded, and that sediment goes into the valley, covering the skeletons that are already there.
Okay.
So put it in the swamp with little oxygen in the water, with a lot of sedimentation of clay and silt, it's the best place to preserve a fossil. So we need to have this is a good example of not all places are good. You need to be buried quickly. You need to have the right conditions, and we are missing all the mountains in the world for the fossil record of dinosaurs and other fossils.
Incredible. You mentioned that, okay, so when you were 9, you found that the tooth of the dinosaur, and later on you discovered this that it belonged to a new species.
Correct.
So tell us about the species. Tell us about this amazing animal.
So in that case, it's a theropod dinosaur, so carnivore. Call it Torvosaurus gurney. Is an animal very similar to T-Rex, basically.
Okay.
It's a huge skull. I mean, about 1 meter long skull. The longest teeth are, the crown is 20 centimeters crown teeth. The mouth is gigantic. This is a fierce predator. This would be, again, the largest land predator that ever existed in Europe for all times. That was from Bourdieu, and we name it. So it's very similar to T-Rex, but the main difference was time. When T-Rex existed, this one was already a fossil 80 million years before.
Wow.
Exactly. Wow.
Would T-Rex would T-Rex have even existed with a guy like this around? I mean, because they probably would have, one of them would have survived the other, right? One of them would have dominated the other.
I suppose. I mean, but this was already fossil 80 million years before. So in another way to put it is, the time between Torvosaurus, my dinosaur, and T-Rex is actually longer than T-Rex to us.
Wow.
That's incredible, huh?
It's crazy.
So dinosaurs did not exist all at the same time, and T-Rex is a very young dinosaur. It's one of the latest dinosaurs to appear.
Why the hell haven't they made a movie about your dinosaur yet?
Because T-Rex is way more famous. That I cannot compete. And you know who tells the history of T-Rex, the stories of T-Rex are where T-Rex was found in America. And we Portuguese,
way more fashionable to be found in America,
I suppose.
Come on.
It's was found 100 years ago, so it's easier to have news and information about it. There is much more known about T-Rex than there is about Torvosaurus, and was found in America, and ours was found in Portugal. So
listen, we know that the dinosaur that was in Portugal would be much healthier than a dinosaur in America. So I know who would win that fight, between those two guys.
You said that, not me.
I'll take the blame. I'll take the heat. Don't worry. I mean, this is something that surprises a lot of people, Octavio, that we had, that we've got so many fossils, we've got so many places to view dinosaurs and to view dinosaur bones and footprints and all these kind of things. Everyone in Portugal knows about Rota dos Vinhos and the Roman ruin routes and all these kind of things, but not a lot of people know that there's a whole route that you can follow in Portugal where these dinosaurs roamed, and there still remains of them today. Based on now, I'm learning because the conditions here have allowed that to happen. But maybe you could just take us a little bit through the country. Where else? Lourinhã, first of all, of course. What else can we discover in Lourinhã in terms of the dinosaurs? And where else in the country can people learn more about these massive creatures that roamed here once upon a time?
Right. So Lourinhã is really the epicenter of the findings, and the municipalities around. So the concentration cloud of bones will be with the epicenter right here. But we do have findings in Algarve, for instance, in the south, with dinosaur tracks. I mean, tourists don't know, but there are beaches in which you lay the towel in top of dinosaur tracks, and it's just, they look just holes in a rock, but they are dinosaur footprints. And the northmost finding is in Aveiro. It's a beautiful town of Aveiro. Actually, within the town limits, that was the northmost place to find where dinosaurs were found. But we don't have not only fossil of dinosaurs, but mammals. Some of the oldest mammals in the world were found here in Portugal, in Leiria, quite a few. We have trilobites, even older than dinosaurs. Some of the largest trilobites in the world were found in Portugal. So it's very important for paleontology, and that's why our master in paleontology at Nova University in Lisbon, it's so successful, because we have topics for students that can find new species for a master thesis, and that's quite remarkable.
Why not any further north? Is it? Is it just that they haven't been found yet, or do you think they didn't go that far north? Is it the conditions that you mentioned as well?
There is no rocks of the right age.
Okay.
So remember those conditions that were required. You need rocks of the right age and the right environment. So in this case, if you want Jurassic dinosaurs, you need Jurassic rocks that were sedimented during the Jurassic and need to be in continental conditions, not marine. And for the north, you have those granites. Granites are not even sedimentary rocks. They don't preserve fossils at all. You may have it in schists, which are other kind of rock, which is older. It does preserve fossils like trilobites, but not dinosaurs, because dinosaurs are younger. So you need to have the right rocks, and you don't have the right rocks north of Aveiro.
Interesting. And then I suppose the same rule applies for further south. That's why
correct. That is correct. So in Alentejo, for instance, you barely don't have any Mesozoic, so the era of dinosaurs. In Algarve, you do have a bit. That's why you do find fossils, but they are mainly concentrated in the Oeste region, where Lourinhã is.
Okay, so that's interesting. So even, you talk about you needed to have those 4 out of 4 conditions in order for all of this to come together. There's only certain parts of the country, and even our little small country, where we had the exact 4 out of 4 to preserve and to find these all the fossils and everything.
Possibly in Minho, in the extreme north of the country, eventually we would have even more dinosaur living there back in the Jurassic. We don't know, because there's not one single meter of the right rock of the right age. So it's impossible to find a dinosaur in Minho, even if we explored and excavated for the rest of our lives. It would be impossible. Even if dinosaurs were super abundant, they have twice more dinosaurs there than we have it in Lourinhã.
We wouldn't know.
Yes, we wouldn't know.
Yeah. Amazing. Tell us a little bit about the park. I must tell you, I went there with my family, with my kids and my wife. It was our first outing after the first lockdown. When we had COVID, we went to the dinosaur park. It was amazing. Unfortunately, Benjamin, our little boy, slept through the whole thing. Every now and then he woke up because you have the noises of the dinosaurs around. But tell us a little bit about the park, how it started, how it's developed to what it is now, because you've been involved in that as well.
Yes. The park we're talking about, the Dino Park Lourdes, which is an area which have a museological site for where Museu de Lourdes has all the dinosaur fossils, and a proper park outdoors with models of dinosaurs in which the visitors can do about 5 kilometers of routes and see dinosaurs in real size. I mean, this park is one of the most successful places for visitor in Portugal. It started as a need of putting all our fossils in a museum big enough to host them. The Museum of Lourdes was not big enough, so we fought to find a solution, and Dino Park was a solution that was found for that. It's interesting that the first draft for that solution was written by my own mother in 1997.
Oh wow!
That took 20 years to come to life in a different view from what she thought, but it came out pretty well, I suppose.
Yes, and what does she think of the place?
She cried when it was inaugurated.
Amazing.
We are all of us were very emotional.
It's incredible, Octavio. So congratulations, because it's a really, really special place, and again, I think just something that really completely surprises people. That when they come to Portugal, this is not something that you expect. You don't expect to come to a place that's one of the epicenters of dinosaur bones and fossils in the world. It's incredible.
Right.
Can we expect more discoveries, more new species, more?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, all the time.
Amazing.
We've been lucky enough to name a new species every year.
Wow.
So
which was the latest one?
Portugal. So not only from Portugal, but from I work a lot in Angola, in Africa, in Wyoming, in Greenland. So our expeditions translating new findings and some of them are really new for the world, for science, so we can name those species. Yes. Some of them, quite a few from Lourdes, but different ages, different animals, turtles, amphibians, marine reptiles, flying reptiles, mammals, whatever you can find.
Do you have any favorites?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one that's yet to be found. Yes, I always want to find a new one. So Amazing. My favorite is the one it's waiting for me with different anatomy, different shape, that tell us something different about the evolution of dinosaurs.
Does it make you proud that Portugal is this place where there's this collection and this history?
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm very, very proud of my country, and I wouldn't change any place for living.
I mean, this is not going to be dinosaur related, so if you don't mind, Octavio, but I mean, when you travel, when you come back, you interact with a very global community with your work.
Yes.
What are the things that you appreciate, and what are the things that you're proud of about your country in general?
Well, I like this
chill out mood we have. Food, being close to the ocean, for me it's very important. Of course, a fossil record, and one other thing is close to the heart and it's hard to measure. It's my hometown, my homeland, so I like it here.
Beautiful. Octavio, I mean, I saw you do an amazing interview on the BBC. That made me proud, because it was like, you know, another Portuguese guy representing our country and showing the world how amazing this country is. But how can people follow you and stay in touch and be kept up to date with your work?
I'm very open, and I'm pretty much everywhere in the social media, so that's easy. And my login is All Mateus, or my username is All Mateus, in pretty much Facebook and everywhere. Visit the Museum of Lourinhã and the Dino Park. And for those who want to be paleontologists, we do have a very important master program for paleontology in Portugal, and they're very welcome to log in and to join. We need also volunteers. We welcome volunteers, and we do receive volunteers from various places in the world that stay with us, helping in the lab how to prepare to glue, to remove the rock, to clean the dinosaur bones, to make it ready for study and museum display. And we can do that in the lab of Lourinhã Museum, and we receive volunteers from all over the world. So that's the way people can join.
Brilliant. So
I'm the president of the Portuguese Society for Paleontology, and we are welcome everyone that loves paleontology to join in.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to put links for your social, for the Dino Park as well, because more people need to visit the place. It's incredible. I mean, you've built these like sort of stands, these platforms at the same height as the dinosaurs, and you get a real feeling for how enormous and beautiful these creatures were. So it's amazing. Now that I'm talking about it, I think I need to go back, and I need to pick a day to go back when my baby boy doesn't fall asleep during the whole thing. But yeah, it's amazing. Octavio, a question that we ask all of our guests: Portugal, the simple life. Why?
Because people make it simple. And people, it's what make the connections and things working in Portugal. I think Portuguese people are uncomplicated. Of course, there are exceptions, like in any place, and but they welcome other people from all over the world very, very easily. It's actually considered one of the countries where it's easier to be welcome, to feel welcome, according to the studies. So yes, I think the people can help.
Wonderful. Octavio, thank you so much. I've loved this conversation. I've learned a whole bunch, which I love. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Dylan.
And for now, I'm going to let you call it.
That's a wrap.
So thank you once again to Octavio, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We'd love to hear from you. And as we say in Portugal, um abraço. Welcome to the simple life.